Welcome everybody to this episode of Open Ended with Widharmika Agung, who's joining us from Jakarta. I've known him for many, many years. We did our masters together in Boston, and now we're scattered in different parts of the world. So it's really a gift to have this time with him and to be able to chat with him. And so I'll hand over to Olivia to introduce Open Ended.
Right. So Open Ended is a platform for activist designers and thinkers around the world. Together, we will explore the spaces where creativity, culture, and design intersect with technology, science, and engineering, with a lens on challenging existing structures and entrenched perspectives.
So a little bit on Widhar. He actually incredibly studied industrial engineering in Bandung in Indonesia, and then he ended up doing his master's in international development. He now runs two incredible organizations. One is called indorelawan.org, which is Indonesia's largest online volunteer matching network, which really brings people together from various backgrounds to work on change. And he also runs Iwan Tirta Batik as part of his job at Capsquare Asia Partners, a private equity fund. And he has really been at the forefront of working to reclaim Batik as a luxury fabric for Indonesians, as well as for audiences around the world. For me, he's somebody who cares about craftsmanship, culture. He cares about building businesses to make positive impact in his country, but he does it all in a way that's incredibly natural and driven by his own upbringing as an Indonesian from Bali and Central Java. And personally, I just find him a wonderful storyteller and somebody that you're really going to enjoy speaking with. So welcome, Widhar, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Suhair. Good to catch up with you. Looking forward to talk whatever we're going to talk about today.
Cool. Why don't you tell us a little bit actually about how you grew up? You're from Bali. You have a very amazing and special life story. And I'm curious about also in Bali now, there's these cultures that coexist. Almost what you see happening now after this pandemic in Bali specifically.
Yeah. So I'm from Bali. My father is from Bali, but my mother is from West Java, from Bogor, West Java. So that's actually, I think, that they have this different religion and their family works actually influenced me a lot. So it is at least when I went to school, when I grew up in Bandung, a smaller it's a capital of West Java, is many people said it's not common. Right, it's not common. That will not work out. If you have family from different backgrounds, they have different religion. That will not work out. So for me, I feel fine. I feel like, oh, it works out for me. So I feel like that difference is not an issue to still bring compassion among two people. I went to school. I went to a Catholic school. Right. So also in Indonesia, one of the biggest ethnic group is Chinese, where I actually have many Chinese friends at that Catholic schools, and it works out, right? Those differences actually works out well, and the narrative of differences doesn't work out well. It's actually in relationships, in managing an organizations, in managing a country. It's actually getting louder and louder, right? Even in the past when I was actually growing up and coming up from a very diverse background and feeling that it can work out, for me, it's very important to take part in telling the narrative that it can work, right? And I can tell you how. In Bali, for example, you touch upon Bali. I'm from Bali, but I was not born in Bali like my father. But in Bali, the social network is very strongly knitted, right? So even though I'm not born and I don't live in Bali at the moment, I'm still part of the Banjar. Banjar is like a group, a smaller group of neighborhood under a village. So it's a sub-village sort of, right? So I'm from a village called Kramas, and I'm part of Banjar Lotmaken, right? And I have obligations to my Banjar. So as you know, in Bali, there's so many ceremonies. There's so many ceremonies for an individuals. There is so many ceremonies for the village. There is so many ceremonies for the Banjar, right? So as a member of the Banjar, I need to contribute to the preparations, right? Since I'm now living in Jakarta and, I cannot come, I will need to pay. But if I were in Bali, they know I'm in Bali, I need to take part, like preparing the offerings, right? The offerings or cooking, for example. So what happened in Banjar, what I noticed in Banjar is that, the member of the Banjar came from different background, right? Many individual identities, like there are people who are very rich, right? They might be businessmen, they might be government officials. They can be as modest as the cleaner in a market, wet market, for example. But when they came, everybody are treated equally the same. So they would remove their personal identity. They would come to this. We have this hall, the Banjar Hall, and people would come as equal, and they would start interacting. Right? They would start interacting. They forget about their differences. They would just start cooking. So in Bali, the man cooks. So I was given the most simple task, which is chopping the red onion. So the other task is more sophisticated. But during that interactions, people ask me questions about how am I doing, and that interaction built trust among the Banjar member, right? And that trust, that connection actually strengthened the community, right? So now even if the Banjar has a project, I would still get involved despite that I'm living far away from the Banjar. So it's still very strong part of me as a Balinese, right? So that inspires me for Indo Relawan. That's what made me believe, one of the reasons I believe that, if you bring people together, give them a mission, common goal, and you have people interact, you will unite people with the common goal, and then that interaction will build trust, right? And I think that is important at the moment.
Could you tell us a little bit more about what Indo Relawan is and how it sort of works and how it started as well? Because I think it's got a really interesting starting story.
So Indo Relawan is a non-profit organization that me and 3 other friends started about 8 years ago. So our vision is to make, we have this term called gotong royong, which is collaborations among people for common goals. There is no English translation for gotong royong, so and it has more rich definition than collaboration. So it's really, I think the simplest way to describe it is collaboration for common goal, right? So we want to make collaborations as for common goal, common goods among the youth of Indonesian as a lifestyle. What we've seen in Indonesia, the youth are getting this lifestyle of going to coffee shop, going, exercising, like going biking or running. So what we vision is, we want to see is that, when you see a youth in Indonesia, and most of them have social mission and they're involved as a volunteers. That's what we wanted to see. And what we do at Indo Relawan, there are 3 things. One is we want to make the process of finding volunteering work easier for people. And we are doing so by running this volunteer work marketplace online through www.indorelawan.org. That's number 1. Number 2, what we do is we also campaigning. So we are trying to be as loud as other narrative in this online internet. Right, so we are campaigning for volunteering, right, among the youth, the benefit of it, right. So that's what we're trying to do, campaigning about volunteering. Number 3, what we are doing is actually building capabilities for nonprofit organizations or communities activities to work with volunteer at scale, right. At the moment, we have 170,000 plus network within our network, 170,000 volunteers within our network across Indonesia. We almost cover all provinces. We have about 3,000 organizations within our network, and we have around 5,000 plus activities within our platform since the beginning. So and anyone can be part of the platform. Any organizations can be part of the platform, but not all activities can be part of the platform. We only support activities that the benefit can be felt by activities that benefit everyone in Indonesia without any exceptions. So we don't support political activities. We don't support, religious activities. We support religious organizations if they do work for all Indonesians. Because what we're trying to do, we see volunteering as a means to a goal. What we're trying to do is to make Indonesian, especially the youth, to become more united towards common goal.
And so can you say a little, because for me, Indonesia is very self-contained in a lot of ways, right? In terms of culture, even though, it's still, I think it's a very modern, I would never define it as like, when you go to Indonesia, you don't feel like you're in a developing country. It's a highly sophisticated place to visit, but, there's all the chaos of a lot of countries. How does it feel now? Is there a sense of Indonesian identity? And do you feel like you're part of that? Or do you feel like everybody is navigating from a more disconnected space?
Yeah, so definitely now there's a more Indonesian identity among Indonesians, but I don't know whether this is right. But if I notice for countries like Indonesia that has been kind of dominated by what do you call this? For Indonesia, it was the Dutch, right? For a long time. So there was a for a very long time, there's a low self-esteem within the people of Indonesians, right? For hundreds of years. It took a while until the first president galvanized the energy and brought the spirit of the pride of Indonesians. But that sort of low self-esteem is still around, I feel, right? So there's always sort of, when you're looking for, when people look for a direction to look to the West, for example, for direction for technology, including art, what is cool, what is not, but they look to the West. So for a very long time, right? That has been the rule. And that is what I think made me excited about joining the brand, Iwan Tirta, is that, it's not about selling a product, right? Not only about selling a product, but if we are successful in making people spend about $300 for a piece of fabric that is Indonesian handmade and it's Indonesian design. It's what it means is we are winning in terms of building that self-esteem, right? The pride of being Indonesians for the consumers, right? It's about, being proud about Indonesian and being proud about Indonesian craftsmanship. So that is something that, any nation needs to build. I think the pride about their own culture, their own product. That's what I think I observed with any nation that has been able to go global. But the paradox is not being, so proud about their national identity that they shut down and they don't collaborate with other nations. But yeah, to your questions, I think there's more pride of being Indonesians. There's still a lot of work there.
What you're working on is basically bringing luxury batik to a contemporary market, but also working with craftspeople and artisans to make sure that their work is not lost, because I assume it's been by tourism and by mass production. I'd love to know the history of batik, and also why, as somebody, you work for many years in McKinsey, you studied public policy. for you, I know you started this off thinking about investing in businesses, and for you, making impact in the private sector are not two separate things. If you can tell us a bit about why you decided to join, and then also I'd love to talk about the history of batik and why it is so precious, because people from outside Indonesia, I never understood how it can be defined as couture, and it really opened up a new world to me.
So why I decided to join the company I'm working on at the moment, Suhair? Yeah. So why I joined, so let me tell a little bit about Capsquare, which is the company I'm working at the moment. So Capsquare is a private equity that invests majority on a company. So I'm attracted with what they do because it has a lot of, compared to other private equity firm, it got very involved in the operations, which I like, which is because it has a lot of interaction with the people. Number two, it invests on companies' brands, old brands, and try to revive the brands. And why is it connects with me is because a lot of those old brands usually has a lot of rich history, and there are a lot of people invested the time to the brand, to the companies, not only the founders of the companies, but also the people who have been working for many years in the company. So with new investment coming in, with new talents coming in, it's really enabled the brand, the company to sort of find a second life, like to find a new path to growth, which is, I think, very important. And if you see what is different between companies in Indonesia and in more developed market like the US, is there are not that many companies that are able to basically grow from middle cap to more larger or going global, right? So what this what Capsquare provides is investment and also talent pool that enable the company to grow from small to large or middle to large cap companies, and hopefully going global like Iwan Tirta. So those are the two reasons. And before Iwan Tirta, I was working on a herbal company. When you were here, I was working for a herbal company, and it was, the corporation is in Central Java. And when I went there, it was very touching to see that people who have been working in at the company at the time, those who have been spending 20, 30 years with the company, if the company actually collapsed, they actually lost their life, right? Their pension fund sort of. And the company is also very rooted to the surroundings. The Boy Scout would sing about the brand. It's how rooted the company or the brand is to the surroundings, like community. So I think that sort of feelings that I think energizes me when I joined this group.
And so, okay, so can you tell us about this brand, when it started? So you joined this group and you decided to work on Iwan Tirta. That was where you were assigning your time after the herbal company. And you've been doing it now for a number of years. And I think you didn't expect to care about fashion. And I remember you saying you were nervous, like something out of your, scope of understanding. And also, I think from the perspective of Indonesian culture, you're obviously from Bali. You've had a really unusual story growing up. I wonder how much that connected, and we'll talk about that more. But tell us about Iwan Tirta and the brand and how it started and really what you do. Just give us an overview of what the organization or the company now does and who your clients are.
Okay. So Iwan Tirta is a brand started by the founders, Iwan Tirta. He was educated in the US, not as a fashion designer. He was educated as a lawyer, actually in Yale and Oxford. And then he got exposed to batik, and then learned batik from another maestro. His name is Gotik Swan. So if you think about Indonesia before the independence, it's like kingdoms. So every king or every sultan would have a maestro of batik. So Gotik Swan is the maestro of batik for the first president, and Iwan Tirta is the maestro of batik for our second president.
Mm-hmm.
So
whose name is
whose name is Suharto. Mm-hmm. And so it started as a hobby for him. He started batik doing research in the UK. From the UK, he was actually exposed. The first batik collection he got exposed was from also from a museum in the UK. And then he learned with Gothic Swan, and he got better at it. And what he did, he different with Gothic Swan, what he did was actually bringing a traditional batik from Indonesia. He was assigned by the first president of Indonesia to create a batik for the country, right? To unite the country. So in the past, batik was actually batik of the people, or either the batik for the court or for the kingdoms. So they are very separated design, separated style. So you can actually be punished if you use batik that is designed for the kings or for your royalties if you're only a common people. So what our first president had in mind is to create a batik for all Indonesians. So Gothic Swan did that. So create a definition of new batik for Indonesia, which is Batik Indonesia, which combined the batik pattern and colors from the royalties as well as from the common people, usually from the North Coast. And Iwan Tirta, what he did is because he was educated outside of Indonesia, he was exposed to the lifestyle in the US and in Europe. And what he did, he brought that batik. He brought that batik and he brought it to a designer, a fashion designer at the time. I forgot his name. And the designers told him that, this batik is not suitable for luxury fashions. So what he did, he changed the design. He introduced silk to batik making. And since then, batik has been worn more as a fashion fabric as well, not only in traditional occasions. So that's how Iwan Tirta was started. And then he's really working with the government at that time with many exciting projects, not only fashion, but also design for hotels. And then the brand actually grew.
Amazing.
And he passed away in 2010.
I see. So you've been running the business basically since then. And so for me, this is amazing to take it into something really luxury. How do you think about sort of that compromise between, you are allowing these craftspeople to spend as many hours as they need to create these things. So I assume you have to price accordingly. Can you talk a little bit about, firstly, the process of making, the method of making, an example, like one, incredible outfit. How long does it take? What's the effort? And then how you guys think about marketing it and selling in a country that's obviously, you and I both know, developing country. There's always going to be a luxury market, and it's amazing how we forget that.
Yeah. So for Iwan Tirta, the typical time that it takes to create a batik is about 3 months to 6 months, right? So mostly it's about 3 months. It depends. So that's the amount of time. And if you see batik, it looks like a painting, right? So if you see batik, it looks more like a painting, but the process of making batik is more like an orchestra. So it's not like one person that makes a batik, right? Not like painters, usually it's one person making an art, whereas batik, it takes many person. So it starts with the one person who designed the pattern. So the pattern would start in a piece of paper usually, right? And then the pattern would get transferred into fabric. Also, usually with using pencils. In the past, they used different methods. Now they use pencils. So they put the pattern on the fabric, and then they start putting the wax on the fabrics, usually starting with the outline of the patterns. So the part of fabric that is covered by wax is protected from the dye, right? So it's batik making is really about putting a pattern into fabric by using dye by using wax that prevent dye to penetrate the fabric. So it's very common across the world. But what makes it unique in Indonesia is because it uses this tool. It's called the canting. So this is very Indonesian. So in other parts of the world, they use stamp, they use other methods, but canting is very Indonesian.
And so it's like a kind of like a hook on a stick?
It's like a pen.
It's like a pen.
Right. It's like
ink into it.
No, the wax.
Put wax.
Oh, you put
the wax into
wax
it.
Is like dribbled.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you put the wax into it. So there are different. This is a bigger one, right? With bigger sprout. But it has different kind of sizes. So this is very Indonesian. This is what makes it unique. And so you have to repeat the process of putting the wax, dyeing, removing the wax, and putting another wax, and then redo the dyeing until you have the right color combinations, if you can imagine that. And the more the colors add into the fabric, actually, the more sophisticated the process, the longer it takes to make the fabric. And so it's. So you have the one who make the patterns, you have the one who actually put the wax, and there are different phases of putting the wax into the fabrics. So usually it involves one or more than one, so at least two artisans to do it. And then you have the one who dye the fabric, you have the one who wash the fabric, and most importantly, you like an orchestra, you have the conductor, the artist, who basically decide what patterns, whether this is good enough to do quality controls. And Iwan Tirta plays that role, right? So he works with many designers, and with the brand now works with about 800 artisans in Central Java.
Amazing.
So that's and if you think about if you think about that, it's very costly, right? This is very costly, and therefore it needs to be a luxury product, right? And what about marketing is for the brand, marketing is about educating the consumer, right? Putting purpose into the product. It's so far it's very Indonesian, right? The product is very Indonesian. So for Indonesians, what we need to do is to make them fall in love with batik, to understand why is it important, to understand the process. Many Indonesian now, they think batik making is more like painting. They forget how long does it take, right? So that's the battle.
How long does it take to make one piece of fabric? Then let's say like an average kind of piece.
3 months.
Oh wow,
that's a good.
So I have a question regarding Indonesians, because it's a very sort of pet peeve of mine. Is like, so when we think of like how much most of our cultures have been westernized in what we wear, I think India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, maybe Sri Lanka are different, as we still wear our own clothes. We still pay a lot of money for our own, what we call couture, for design, and it's valuable to us. And you say that you're bringing it back in Indonesia. I've seen people at weddings, and I know you from Bali, like you wear your own clothes. How do you think that there's a shift now towards coming back to that, or will it always be seen as a ceremonial outfit or more of something to wear for events? Or do you see people integrating it more into their day-to-day wear?
Yes, so it's the positive news. Yes, it's actually getting more integrated to day-to-day wear. In the past, people use it in traditional ceremony, and then they use it in formal events in offices, And then the government made started a trend whereby a civil servant needs to wear batik on Friday, so it's Batik Friday. So everybody wear batik, and when the government official wear batik, their private counterpart wears batik, right? It's nice. So people get more kind of used to with batik. Now what it's actually goes further than that. We see people trying to combine batik with a more modern kind of fashion accessories. We see people wearing the younger generation try to combine batik, short sleeve batik with sneakers. Ladies fashion is can get more creative, right? The type of fashion product that can be created with batik is actually there's actually more variation. So yes, I think it's getting more towards a daily use at the moment. And then,
so my last question is, you mentioned a hotel. So what was that? A collaboration?
So in the past, Iwan Tirta, Hilton Indonesia was an iconic hotel at the time. It was many of the artwork. Even there's a specific room designed by Iwan Tirta. Shangri-La, also a project created by Iwan Tirta. So that was back in the 60s, 70s. Amazing. And then with Iwan Tirta Home, because since then there was no kind of definitions of like home decor or furniture, Indonesian furniture with Indonesian identity. If you go to Indonesian houses of Indonesians or even Indonesian officials, it's very European. So with Iwan Tirta, what happens since 2 years ago with the design, we talked with the government and we try to make this product as an ambassador for Indonesian design. So now we are bringing this design to Ambassador's House, Indonesian Ambassador's House. It's in Japan, it's in Paris, it's in the office in Jakarta. So we hope to bring the design as an ambassador for Indonesian culture at ambassadors' houses of Indonesia in other parts of the world.
I am very inspired by this idea of reclaiming identity. And I think, it's one of the reasons I wanted to start open-ended is this idea of we're losing our voice when we're not coming from a particular narrative. And we're also not listening to voices that are coming from around the world that are forceful and strong and should be guiding us. And so for me, you really embody that. And a lot of it has to do, of course, with where you're coming from. But equally, I think we have this reductivist thought still in some parts of the world. And increasingly, as we are polarized, that if you're coming from the outside, then you're in whatever way an outsider. And the reason I wanted you to talk about Indonesia is, for me, it's like, the most cosmopolitan place, that I visited in Southeast Asia, and yet it has such a strong internal identity. I also really love, so I want to talk a bit about like we asked all of our guests about what is their vision for the future. And I know, so both of us are working with young people right now, I think in a way that we wouldn't have expected as collaborators and as partners. And I'm really curious about, what is that radical idea for the future from your perspective? You are working in craftsmanship, you're working in luxury business, you're also working in bringing people together in the most democratic way for change. I know you've leveraged technology and the internet, but at the end of the day, your work is about people, and you're a very young country. I'm just really interested in what is this dream for the future, and how does this idea of the youth and young people play into that?
Yeah, so I believe that the youth will decide what kind of future we have, right? So because they contribute the larger part of the population in Indonesia, they will decide what the future would be in Indonesia, right? So what I envision is, I would like to see the youth care more about the real social problem, right? That should become our common enemies, for example, right? the youth to get more involved in issues such as climate change, the youth to get more involved in issues such as plastic waste use, inequality of education, for example, Indonesia, or, so those issues that should be taken care of, so that the future is actually better for the youth, right? For them, it's better for them, right? We are living in the world whereby the problems is actually cutting across borders, cutting across people from different identities. If you look at the pandemic we are facing now, it's a great example, right? Whereby we can only stop this pandemic if individuals are care enough for other individuals, right? No one is safe until everyone are, right? So when you use that mask, it's not about protecting yourself; it's protecting the people around you, right? That if that ideas you can spread to as many people, I think that is beautiful, and that's kind of what I hope to have is that the future, while the youth is actually care about others, right, and taking actions to make their future better off than the current situations, right? So that's my dream.
Oh, that's so nice. So Widhar is honestly, I don't think I've ever met anyone who doesn't want to hang around him and be around him and have his energy and his openness. And I think it's really generous of you to share this going into your story of your work, even if it's very brief, because I think it shows where you're coming from in terms of your upbringing and your experiences and your choices has actually made you want to be committed and to be present in whatever that you do, and fully to be aware of what can change if, we want to make small differences and connect with one another. And that's really inspiring. So I know we're at the end of our time and I could go on forever, but we will share resources on Indorelawan to our channels and our platforms, and we see how we can work with you to help you going forward. And we will also be bringing some of our participants, speakers like yourself, together to talk about some of the issues that you mentioned, and see how we can come together with our own experiences to tackle them in a secondary setting. But I just wanted to thank you so much for joining from Jakarta. I really missed you after this chat, so I hope I couldn't see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was really amazing to hear.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you, Widhar. Lots of love. Bye.
Lots of love. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.